Hello, friends, and welcome back to Stories About Entitled People. Let's start our video with the story where OP returns from washing his hands at a restaurant only to find a group had taken his table. But before we begin, best way to support our channel is to leave comments, like, and subscribe with the turned on bell so you don't miss the new video every single day. Here we go. Karen Encounter Story. A few weeks ago, I, 39-year-old male, was on a work trip and went to a restaurant to get a meal at a casual-type local place. Since I had a few hours to kill, I decided to dine in rather than get takeout. It was early afternoon and the place was around 60% full. The hostess seated me at a two-top. Before I even sat down, I asked her for directions to the restroom so I could wash my hands before eating. I left my ball cap/hat on top of the menu on the table, mainly so any server would know someone was seated. After the 2 minutes it took me to wash my hands, I returned and found my table and one of the two chairs gone, my hat and the menu included. I turned around to look for a server when I noticed that a nearby booth had a two-top table with one chair pulled up to it. There were 5 people seated and only one at the two-top. On the floor a few feet away, I noticed my hat. When I approached to pick up my hat, I asked the people sitting there if they had moved the table. A woman in the booth, let's go ahead and call her Karen, responded that a friend showed up so they needed a larger or additional table and that this one wasn't being used. I responded that I had been seated there and was using it and had left my hat on the table to indicate that while I washed my hands. She responded that there was no hat on the table. When I asked how my hat ended up on the floor, picking it up and pointing to it next to her table, she said she never saw it. At this point, I noticed a waiter, so I gestured for him to come over. I explained that this party moved my table over to their booth. I said I had no problem if they wanted to use one of the chairs for their additional guest, but that I would need the table. Karen cut me off at the end and said to me, not the waiter, that I should just find another table since they were already using it. I responded to the waiter that I was using it, which is why I had left my hat there while I washed my hands. At this point, the other woman who was sitting at my table started to get to, presumably, to give me the table back. But Karen immediately said, "Don't you dare," to her, then stared at me and the waiter as if daring either of us to respond. The waiter started to say he was sure they could find another table. She cut him off with a typical Karen response, "We are not giving up the table, and I need to speak to your manager." This is when I decided I really liked the waiter and would give him a nice tip. He responded that he wasn't going to waste his manager's time on a complaining Karen and told her the options were to give me back the table or go eat somewhere else. I'm not sure how, but it worked, except for the staring daggers and muttered comments, which I found amusing. She did not appreciate my periodic smirk or chuckle in response. Looking back, I maybe could have just moved, but I also assumed it was an innocent mistake until Karen opened her mouth and hit me with that patented attitude. Never saw the hat. That's pure Karen behavior there. Sounds like she probably saw you get seated and decided to take the table because she could. It happens, and it's usually because they want to start something. It's probably nothing against you. She was probably hoping to get her meal for free or something. Anyway, give it a thumbs up and get ready for the next crazy story. And our second story. Sir, I'm not your employee. You can't fire me. The cast goes like this. Me, friend, mother, kid, manager. This anecdote arose a year ago. I was leaving high school with my friend, and it occurred to us to go to a shopping center that was about 15 minutes from school. When my friend and I arrived, we saw a new sports store. We went to see the football helmets. We both play football because I wanted to improve my equipment to a more recent one. I stayed in the store while my friend told me, "Friend, I'm going to find something to eat. If you don't go soon, there won't be anything left for you." So I tried to hurry by choosing one of the models, but then a mother with his son approached me asking me questions about which model is better. I was already in a hurry to go eat with my friend, but this woman brings her son closer to me. He asks if I can help him try on some things. I don't know why, but I agreed. This boy was very thin and pale, so I asked him, "Me, in what position do you play?" Kid, "I don't know yet. It's my first time playing football." Me, Oh, I understand. By your physique, I suppose they'll make you a cornerback or receiver. Let me show you some things that'll serve you. Kid, are you a cornerback? Me. No, I'm a linebacker, but I've played in most positions. I finish showing her some accessories, and then he goes back to her mother. She gives me everything back and says, Mother, thank you very much. Can you take it to the cashier and charge it to this card? Me. I'm sorry, lady, but I don't work here. Mother. Of course, you helped us in everything. Me. It was simple kindness, lady. Mother. You're lying. How can you treat us like that? Bring your manager. Me. Lady, I repeat that I am not an employee. The lady was yelling a lot, to which the manager turns her chair. Yes, this idiot was always on his phone behind a large desk. Manager, what's happening? Just charge him and that's it. Me. I am not an employee. You should know it since you're the manager. Manager, you know what? Get out of my store. You're fired. This guy was always on his phone. He didn't even turn to see me. Me. I'm not going to go. I haven't done anything. Manager. Security, get this guy out of here. A security employee approaches me and tries to push me. I was bigger than him, so I dodged him, making him slip. This guy gets angry and calls the mall supervisor. This guy arrives and asks what's happening. Well, the mother intervenes. Mother. This kid is a liar. They fired him and he got very aggressive. The supervisor looks at me, says that my uniform is from school, not from the store. Everyone is silent, and the guy asks to see some security cameras since he doubts that I've done something wrong. When they see the video, they realize that I had entered the store first and then I helped the child. In the end, it shows how the manager doesn't even turn to see me and that the security guard tried to push me without reason. The manager kept apologizing to me, repeating that he had a 50% discount on my purchase. The lady was very sorry for yelling at me and the security guard was fired. He had already some incidents of unnecessary violence recorded. But the worst part was that I didn't get a single piece of KFC chicken that my friend bought. The lesson of the story is that you should never think someone's working for you just because they're being nice. Being nice isn't tied to getting paid. This manager and the security guard showed that being angry and not being able to do your job well together can be very dangerous. Luckily, the mall boss was able to calm things down. Also, don't forget about the mom who went from being cocky to saying sorry faster than you can say security footage. All right, buckle up, because the next story, it's even more satisfying. And our last story. Block our driveway? Okay. Living in a busy, crowded part of the city meant parking was always a headache. Street parking was a game of chance, and our house was one of the lucky few with a driveway. It wasn't much, but it was enough to squeeze in my dad's truck, my mom's sedan, and my brother's beat-up old hatchback. Even with that, we often had to shuffle cars around to make space. The worst part, the never-ending parade of cars blocking our driveway. Despite the huge private driveway, no parking sign we had bolted to the garage. The worst of it started about 2 years ago when we noticed that the same black Honda Civic showed up again and again. One morning, my dad went out to leave for work only to find the Civic blocking the entrance. He knocked on a few doors, asked around, but no one seemed to know who it belonged to. Frustrated, he had no choice but to take the bus to the hospital where he worked. Before he left, he scribbled a polite note. Please don't park here. This is a doctor's driveway, and it's important I can get in and out quickly. He tucked the note under the wiper and went about his day. When he got home that evening, the car was gone, but so was the note. Instead, it had been tossed on the ground, crumpled up like a piece of trash. My dad just shook his head, hoping it was a one-time thing. Unfortunately, the same thing happened again a few days later. And then again. Each time, Dad would leave a note, and each time the note would end up in a ball on the curb. By the third time, he'd had enough. He was determined to catch the culprit in the act. That opportunity finally came on a Saturday morning. As he was coming back from the grocery store, there it was again, same black Civic parked right across our driveway, but this time was different. My mom had parked in front of the driveway, and my brother's car was already behind it. Trapped. Dad wasn't about to let this golden moment slip by. He pulled in next to the Civic, boxing it on the side. Then he adjusted Mom's car so it was just touching the front of the Civic and moved my brother's car so it lightly nudged the back. The result, the Civic was locked in from all angles with no hope of getting out, and all 3 of our cars had their parking brakes on. Feeling rather satisfied, Dad went inside and watched from the window. About an hour later, 2 women showed up and walked straight toward the Civic. They looked around, puzzled at the blockade around their car, and started asking people nearby if they knew whose cars were trapping them. No one could give them an answer. After 20 minutes of asking around, one of our neighbors pointed toward my dad, who'd been sitting on the porch watching the whole thing unfold. "Hey, I think that guy owns those cars," the neighbor said. Fuming, the 2 women stormed up to my dad. "Why would you trap us like this?" one of them screamed. "We've been stuck here for ages, and you just sat there watching us struggle." Calm as ever, Dad responded, "Well, I've been trying to politely ask you not to park in front of our driveway for weeks. You've ignored every note I left and kept blocking us in. So now you can wait." "It wasn't us," the second woman shouted. "It was our driver. We didn't park here." "Oh, really?" my dad smirked. "Then where's your driver now?" The 2 women had nothing to say. They exchanged nervous glances, but no driver miraculously appeared to back up their story. Defeated, they slunk back to the Civic, trying to figure out what to do next. Not long after, our neighbor from a few doors down came over, clearly embarrassed. It turned out that the women were his mother-in-law and wife. Apparently, the mother-in-law had been using our driveway as her personal parking spot whenever she came to visit. He tried to smooth things over, apologizing profusely and asking if my dad could move the cars to let them out. My dad, still visibly frustrated, simply said, "I'm done dealing with this. I warned you enough." Without another word, he pulled out his phone and called the tow company. The 2 women panicked. "What are you doing? You can't tow our car," the mother-in-law shrieked. "Oh, I can and I will. You've been blocking my driveway for weeks, ignored every single warning, and tossed my notes like trash." "It's time for you to deal with the consequences," Dad responded, his voice calm but resolute. The 2 women, now desperate, ran back to the neighbor, pleading with him to intervene, but by this point it was too late. The tow truck arrived within 15 minutes. The driver gave a knowing look as he began hooking the black Civic up. "This is on you," Dad said. "Maybe next time you'll think twice before parking on someone else's property." In the end, the driver agreed to release their car after paying the full amount of the call, and the neighbor sheepishly apologized again, but this time it was clear the message had finally gotten through. From that day on, no one ever parked in front of our driveway again. Here's the ultimate takeaway. Play stupid games, win stupid prizes. These ladies thought they could treat a private driveway like their personal parking lot and got exactly what was coming to them. Dad's move to trap the car was chef's kiss level petty, but calling the tow truck? That's the perfect cherry on top. Hey guys, thank you all for watching the video. I'll see you in the next one.